Hello, I want to talk for a few minutes about how an application is set in a Fastcall phone number. So I'm logged into Fastcall under settings and then manage phone numbers, and our phone numbers are here. So let's actually start with how we provision a new number. Fastcall is interacting with the Twilio API, and in this instance, we are using both Salesforce API and Twilio APIs. Um, as a native app, we do not use the API to complete and log our phone calls, but we are using API here. So we're going out to Twilio to start from provisioning phone numbers. We're going out across the API and we are looking for phone numbers. So let's say I wanted to find a phone number in, I don't know, Canada. I'd come out here. We're going to Twilio. We're saying, give us numbers in Canada, and we can search and sort, and all this is happening over the API. So here, for numbers that are provisioned already, so let's take a look at this number. So this number is provisioned already. Any change that we make to this setup is going to go back to Twilio over the API and present those changes. And the changes, when a phone number is provisioned or updated, we are creating a URL in the form of a Salesforce site. So the application and the instructions are in Salesforce, which is partially what makes our application native, but we are passing that URL to Twilio. So when the call arrives to Twilio, Twilio knows what to do. So really, if we make any change at all here, so if I added even just a space, you'll see that we're going out to Twilio and we're saying, here's the most recent instructions, even though the instructions here haven't changed, we're going out to Twilio. And one of the things that, and if I remove that space, we're seeing that the update is successful. If we ever sort of made a change here, you see here, Dan has the Australian ringtone set. So this is something else we could change. So for example, we could make this, because this is actually United States, so we can make this a United States. So again, now we're going out to Twilio and saying, update this. So if by chance, and we saw the confirmation message up here, if by chance we ever, and the changes to the phone numbers stay the same, we don't ever, other than what we're doing now, instead of the point of this video, that the instructions that are with Twilio are, sometimes we say set and forget. So they're staying with Twilio and are not changing. We're not polling Twilio weekly or monthly to update these settings. So if for any reason, and this doesn't really happen often, but if for any reason this phone were deleted in Twilio and still existed here in the Fastcall application, we're not going to know that. We're not going to know that until there was an error message and we went to look. And one of the things we would do here is I'd say this IVR that's set here is set for test November. So if I remove this and say, I don't know, change the different IVR, and this was a red error message, we went out to Twilio, and Twilio said, hey, what are you talking about? There's no phone number here for this. And that would tell us, hey, there's a problem. That number has been deleted. So I'm going to pop this back. Any change that we make here is resetting the application back with Twilio. And if we ever, sometimes when we're doing some troubleshooting, or we just want to sort of make sure that all these settings are correct and up to date, we could make no change here. Again, we could really just like add a space, and we're just going out to Twilio and saying, hey, Twilio, let's just make sure things are syncing up here. Now, when we import phone numbers, and again, this is sort of when we import numbers that have been ported, we're using this custom button here. We're going out to Twilio and saying, hey, Twilio, is there anything new that we don't have currently? And it will go out and look for new numbers, both verified and provisioned, and we'll pull those in. But we've had an instance once where a subscriber actually ported a number away, used it, and then ported it back because they were testing another application. They didn't like it. They ported it back, and what ended up happening was the phone number was still here. So they took this, let's just say as an example, they took this number and they ported it away. But this setup was still here. They didn't delete this setup. And then a couple months later, they ended up porting the number back because they weren't happy with the application they tested. So they said, "Oh, here's the number. It works." That's not true. It didn't work because the number had ported back. Um, these two things weren't in sync. So when I had to took a while to figure it out and support, but when I came in here and I said, "Oh, let's go see what's going on with this phone number," and I made a change here, I made this Dan, I got an error message, hey, which told me Twilio didn't have that number, and then I went back and I synced again, and then made another edit here, and boom, green. Um, and then we knew that it was working. So a little bit of a deep dive into something specific. We've talked about adding a custom button here, update, sync, check, I don't know, but essentially you are doing any of that by just passing some set of just by doing, changing anything. So this is in essence the check button, which we haven't added to the application. Um, the ability to sort of recheck that connection. And we've also talked about sort of doing a monthly poll. It just isn't really something that happens very often. I mean, honestly, it's happened a couple of times in the past 5 or 6, 7 years. So we're not doing anything like that. We try not to add too much complexity to the application. We're not doing any sort of regular polling. Um, but if you ever need to just check that the number exists in Twilio and is in fact connected to the settings here, that's how we do it. All right, any questions, shoot us an email. Hopefully the video was helpful.